Hi, this is Jeffrey, and in this video, we're going to take a look at this. My new Polaroid OneStep 600. Now, I purchased this from eBay. I bought it for $7 plus about the same amount in shipping. And I bought this because I wanted this as part of my display collection. I have a number of Kodak instant cameras, but I didn't have a Polaroid one, and I really wanted to get a good example of a Polaroid instant camera. So here it is, and this one is in very, very good condition. Now, this camera is about 40 years old or so, and this particular model, of course, is no longer being manufactured, although Polaroid does make more modern, more updated instant cameras. But I really like this because of the 1970s or 1980s, early 1980s design and manufacture. So let's get started in taking a more detailed look at the Polaroid OneStep 600. And to just show you quickly, here is my Polaroid OneStep 600 on display. Okay, so here we are with the front view of the Polaroid OneStep 600. Now, this camera, from the research that I've done, appears to have been manufactured in approximately 1983. So this camera is about 40 years old or so. And as you can see, it has a very boxy, very angular design, which was very typical of the Polaroids of that era, as well as the Kodak instant cameras that I have as well. So they all follow this very angular design trend of the time. Now, this camera was basically quite featureless, so to say. There was nothing special or outstanding about it. As you can see, it has the lens here, which is a 117 millimeter lens. You got the viewfinder. You have the red trigger button here. You have the famous rainbow or candy stripe that Polaroid is known for. And down here you have the film ejector. Now, you can still buy film for this type of camera, although it's kind of expensive. I'm not going to be taking pictures with it. I only bought this for display purposes. And there were a number of iterations of this camera, of the OneStep 600. There was the OneStep 635. There were versions of it that had a silver front instead of a black front. There were other versions that had a red stripe instead of the rainbow or candy stripe. But they were all quite similar. There were other versions that had a flash on top instead of this camera where it just has a space for a flash bar. There's a connection above here where you can connect a flash bar to it. Now, these cameras were manufactured kind of poorly. When you handle it, you could hear it creak, and the plastic seems really kind of cheap. And they didn't cost all that much at the time. So it was a very poorly manufactured camera. And when I compare it to my Kodaks, those cameras seem to be made better than the Polaroid, even though the Polaroid was probably more popular than the Kodaks. And Kodak had to stop manufacturing their instant cameras because there was a patent infringement lawsuit that Polaroid filed against Kodak. Kodak lost, and they had to stop manufacturing their instant cameras as well as their instant film. So you can't even use the Kodak instant cameras today. If you buy them, you just buy them for display purposes, for decoration. So let's take a look at the side of this camera, the Polaroid OneStep 600. So here's the right side of the camera, and you can see how boxy, how angular this piece of plastic was. It almost reminds me of something out of like the original Star Trek series. That's the kind of design that this reminds me of. It's just, it's just a big angular piece of plastic, as you can see here. The back of it angles down. There are other subtle angles, as you can see by the trigger button, and on the piece of plastic here that comes down, and I'll show you that in a minute, how it covers the lens. This is basically a lens cover. But as you can see, that there's just not much to it. And you have the button here that opens the film cartridge area. So there's not a whole lot to it. It's just really quite plain. So let's take a look at the back of the camera. So here's the back, and again, there's just not much of anything to it, but you can definitely see how it angles downward here, and you can see the viewfinder with the eyepiece. And very often when you see these cameras for sale on eBay, this rubber eyepiece is often missing. It's very rubbery, and that piece is often missing on cameras for sale on eBay. Over here, you have the film counter. When you put film in it, the number of the film is in there, like how many shots you've already taken. You can see the end of the trigger area. This does nothing, so you have to trigger it on the other side where the red button is. Again, just nothing up here. It does have a strap connected to it, so that's about it. But when you actually put this up to your face to use it to take a picture, it is very, very uncomfortable. It's a very unergonomic camera. It is just such an uncomfortable camera to put up against your face, because this part here just, it just hits you in the face here, and it's just quite an uncomfortable camera to use when you have this up against your face, and then you're trying to look through here through this tiny little viewfinder. I mean, look how big this is, and then look how small this little square is for the viewfinder. It's just silly. I mean, what a bad design that is. I mean, just look at that. But I guess that was how the optics were for a cheap camera like this. You have the cover here, and there's just very, very little to it. So let's take a look at the left side, but I doubt there's going to be anything different about that than what we've already saw on the right side. And yeah, I was right. There's just absolutely nothing to it. Nothing at all. It's just a plain piece of plastic. So, you know what? Let's open up the film cartridge and see what that looks like. So here it is with the film cartridge opened, and, to be honest, there's just not a whole lot there. There's a label on top, and as you can see here, and you just insert the film, and I believe the film had the batteries in it as well, because if you press the trigger button here, nothing happens without the film. But if you had the film inside, then the film mechanism would work. But right now, it doesn't work. So the batteries, the power supply was actually part of the film, from what I understand. Now, another interesting aspect about this, as you can see with the light hitting on it, is this nice fluting here. This was a nice touch on some of the Polaroid 600 models. There were others that I saw on eBay where this whole panel here was flat. So I wanted to get one that had this rigid panel, which was very nice. It's much nicer than having a flat panel on it. It's just stylistically, it's much nicer. And let's take a look at the camera now with the cover pulled down. So here's the OneStep 600 with the cover pulled down on top of the lens. And as you can see, it's not very exciting, really. So this was what protected the camera's lens. As you can see, it says Polaroid 600 land camera. It's in black. It's not in uh, silver as the other lettering is. And there's just not much to it. Except over here, this is where you can insert a flash bar. There's a connection right in the middle where you can insert your Polaroid or GE flash bar or Sylvania flash bar or whatever manufacturer made them at the time. And there would be not too many flashes that you would be able to use on each flash bar. I think maybe the maximum was 10. I've seen different variations of the flash bar. Some only had like 4, some had maybe up to 10 with 10 more narrower types of flashes. But after that, you would have to discard it and buy a new flash bar. So buying flash bars and buying film, could get kind of expensive on this quite cheap camera. So here's the side of the camera, the right side with the cover pulled down. Again, it's just not anything outstanding. It's just a big piece of plastic. So let's see if we can hear some creaky noises from this plastic camera. You know something? I'm surprised that so many of these cameras survived for 40 years. I mean, given how cheaply made they seem to be. These cameras were, manufactured to very poor tolerances. And one thing that you notice is that when you compare it to things that are manufactured today, manufacturing has really, really improved over the years because they could never make something like this. This is made like a toy. It's just incredible how poorly made this is, and so I'm surprised that you can still find examples of these cameras still intact. So I just think that uh, in the 1970s and 1980s, there was just very, very poor quality control. This is probably indicative of many other types of products produced at the time, just using very poor quality plastic, and things just creaked. Products just creaked, and you could probably pull them apart pretty easily, and they were just basically junk. But a lot of these things from the 1970s and 80s have become collector's items. So, I guess it's good that some of these items from that era have survived, like these cameras. There are other kinds of things that I've been looking for from the 70s and 80s where they're very difficult to find. But these Polaroid cameras, as well as the Kodak instant cameras, they're pretty easy to find these days. And if you look, you could probably find one that is selling at a low price that's still in good condition. Often these cameras go for like $35, $40 each, plus probably shipping, but I was lucky to get one at $7. So you really have to look on eBay because the prices are all over the place, although I think they are probably overpriced at about $35, $40. If you could get one for $10, $15, that's probably the most I would actually pay for one. And of course, condition is often everything. So if you could find one in good condition, that's a big plus too, because a lot of them just are in poor condition, especially those that are being sold at the lower prices. So I got lucky with this and buying this camera for $7. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the Polaroid OneStep 600. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.